Hey folks, today we're diving into a very specific topic, the myth of the Garden of Eden. And make no mistake, this isn't just some harmless fairy tale. This story exposes the flaws of the God who supposedly wrote it. It also shows, quite clearly, why the whole legend falls apart, theologically, symbolically, and even logically. First off, Christians just can't let go of this myth. The best they do today is say, it's symbolic. The days are really millions of years long. Okay, fine. But even that apologetic excuse doesn't fix the issues that Genesis throws at us. For example, Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Then later, God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. Genesis 1:16. But what do we know from astronomy? That the sun is older than the earth. That the moon isn't a light. It's just a reflective rock. So even symbolically, this is bad cosmology. It fails as science, and it fails as metaphor. Now someone might say, well, pagan religions have myths too. Yes, but here's the key difference. Pagans never took their myths literally. Myth was more like a poetic code, a veiled truth, not a historical claim. Julian the Apostate, the last true pagan Roman emperor, wrote beautifully about this. He said myths are sacred veils that conceal deeper divine truths. He didn't mock them for being unreal. He embraced their symbolism. He even joked that when Christians say, "Ha ha, your God turned into a swan," they're just proving they don't understand myth at all. Julian followed in the footsteps of philosophers like Plato and Iamblichus. Plato reworked myths to convey moral truths through stories. To him, myth wasn't literal. It was a philosophical and educational tool. But in Christianity, we're supposed to believe that God literally made Adam from clay, then made Eve from his rib, and said, "It's not good for man to be alone. Let's make him a helper." And how did that end? Eve tempted Adam, they both sinned, and God kicked them out. And now the whole human race suffers for it. Sure, Christians now claim it's symbolic, but also 100% real. But also exactly how Genesis says it happened? It's a mess. Let's dig deeper. In Genesis 3:22, we read, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil." This is awkward. Let's break it down. A. It's the royal we, the so-called plural of majesty. This is a modern excuse. In Bronze Age Hebrew, there was no royal plural. Plural meant plural. There was no we the God. That's a later invention. B. God was talking to the angels. Except angels in the Bible don't have the knowledge of good and evil. And they're never shown as part of God's decision-making process. They follow orders. That's it. C. The most interesting option? God was speaking to other gods. And this lines up with what we know from ancient Near Eastern religion. God is addressing the divine council, the assembly of deities. In Hebrew scripture, these are the sons of God, Bene Elohim, and they were there from the start. And now we get to Satan. Modern Christians love to say, Satan was the most beautiful angel. His name was Lucifer. He rebelled and was cast down. Sounds like a Marvel movie. But that's not in the Bible. In the Old Testament, Satan isn't a name. It's a job title. The accuser, the adversary. He's a figure in God's heavenly court, more like a divine prosecutor. In the book of Job, Satan shows up with the sons of God before Yahweh. He's not a demon, not the ruler of hell, just part of God's cosmic bureaucracy. So what's the takeaway? The Garden of Eden myth makes no sense. Not as cosmology, not as theology, not as ethics. It's a story where God punishes humanity for wanting wisdom, and it shows a God who didn't even know what he was doing. In the end, it's the serpent, the one who brings knowledge, who actually makes the most sense. So when someone asks, who's the villain here? Maybe the answer is the one who banned knowledge. What does it say about the biblical God that he forbids wisdom? He forbids the very thing that makes us human. Not power, not blind obedience, but the ability to tell good from evil, to think critically, to understand. That's the root of humanity, the foundation of ethics, the heart of culture. And that's what this God fears most. And what does he do when humans eat from the tree of knowledge? He drives them out. Why? Because they gained insight. Because they know more. He literally says, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil." Genesis 3:22. And what's next? God blocks the way to the tree of life. Why? Because now humans might become immortal too. So let's summarize. Knowledge is wrong. Immortality is dangerous. Independence is a sin. This isn't a loving creator. This is a jealous authoritarian, afraid his creation might escape the cage he built for them. In any other religion or philosophy, the serpent, the one who brings knowledge, would be the hero, or at least the enlightened teacher. But here, he's the villain, the devil. But think about it. Who was really the enemy of humanity? The serpent who opened our eyes, or the God who wanted us to stay blind? Eden is a myth that says more about its author than it does about God. This isn't a story about the fall of man. It's a story about how an ancient author imagined the world order. God on the throne, humans below, obedient and ignorant. Eden isn't a place of harmony, it's a place of ignorance. The tree of knowledge isn't a trap, it's a chance. And exile from the garden isn't a fall, it's the beginning of human freedom. While pagan traditions treated myths as symbolic gateways to deeper truth, Christianity turned this one into rigid dogma, a historical fact meant to make us feel guilty forever. But why should we feel guilty? For wanting to understand the world,